Hi crew, video, how to define a class so that you can make objects. I have two class definitions done and I have made objects that are that type. So here was my first initial problem. I needed a program to manage people. So I'm going to define a person class to create objects of type person. Okay, so I'm going to go to person, and the first thing I did was say public class person, and then I made the instance variables, that is the data that all of those objects of type person will have embedded inside of them. And that is the genius behind an object, is that an object can hold all kinds of data at once. Back to main. Inside of main, okay, I needed a way to make and initialize the data that is the person object. So there is me making a person object. Some of these parts should look familiar. New person calls the constructor, and I'm passing in a string and an int and a string. And if I go back to the person class and look at the constructor, that's exactly the order of this one constructor that I take in as a method. String, then an int, and then a string. And you'll see that they assign the parameters to the instance variables. More on this in a minute. Back to main. A similar situation happens for my dog. Okay, I'm creating a dog object. I need to manage dogs, define a dog class so that we can create objects of type dog. So I go to here, I have a public class dog, and then I think, what data should all dogs hold inside of a dog object? And there's the data right there, the breed, the size, the age, the color, and I even have an is popular Boolean variable for a dog. And you can follow the construct here, a little more complicated, but mostly I'm just assigning variables that is a parameter to the instance variable there. And now I'm going to go back to my main and start from scratch, and you're going to do the same with your own object. You need to manage smartphone objects for number 3. Define a class to make objects of type smartphone. So here I go, back to smartphone, and follow along on your copied. I'm going to say public class smartphone, okay, parentheses or curly brackets. And now the first thing you always put is what instance data, okay? What data should all smartphone objects have embedded in them? And this is completely up to you. And instance variables are private. More on that later. So I'm going to say private string, and I'm going to say model. That's like what model of smartphone is. I'm going to say private int, let's say double screen size. Okay, notice I do not give it a value. When you construct a smartphone object, you'll give it a value. I'll say private int storage. Okay, now clearly there's more parts of what makes a smartphone than just those three pieces of data. But now I have a smartphone data type, and that's pretty awesome. Okay, so that's part one. So I'm gonna pause right here, and I'm gonna have you make an object. Okay. So you start by making a file, say something.java, do the public class, whatever that object is. So here's how you create a file. And for instance, if you're going to do books, you would just say book, not books, but book.java, and take it from there. Use the smartphone as a guide. Pause the video, make your class, do your instance data. Go. All right, part 2 of this video is writing the constructor so that I can make a smartphone object. So here I go. To write a constructor, it's public, and then you just say smartphone, okay? The same as the class name. And here is where it gets a little bit goofy. I wouldn't say, maybe I should say, but maybe brand new. Is that what you want to do when you write a constructor? And I'm going to make a note. This is the constructor. How you make the method to make an object. This is the method to make a smartphone object. Okay. And you just, what I want to do in this case is all I want to do is take in values to set my instance variables. So to define a method, I'm going to take in a string, S, that's going to set the screen size, M, I'm sorry, that's going to set the model. I'm going to take in a double, that's going to set the screen size, okay? And notice I'm just doing little variable names, and you'll see how they fit in later. And then I'm going to do an int for storage, okay? All right, so now here's what I do. I'm going to set the model for each smartphone object, but I don't want to do something like iPhone, okay? I want them to be able to set the model variable when they call the constructor. So in order to do that, you just take the parameter M and set it to that. Similarly, screen size, okay? I want to set the screen size, but I don't want to immediately put 4.7 or something, okay? Because then they'll all be 4.7. What I want to do is let the parameter SS set the screen size. Similarly, I'm going to set the storage to be not like 128, okay? Because then they'll all be 128. All phone objects will be smartphone objects. I'm going to set it to whatever the S parameter was, okay? All right, last part. Let's go back to main and make a smartphone object. Here I go. I'm going to just say, like up top, I'm going to say smartphone. That's the type. I'm going to call it phone 0 for being the first phone. And I'm just going to say new smartphone. Okay? And now I'm actually making an object, so I'm going to set it to the strings that will set the data for this smartphone. I'll say iPhone 13. I'm going to say 4.7 for the screen size, and now I'm going to say 128. All right, do the same for your object, your class. Go and make a constructor, okay? Go back to main and actually make an object using that constructor. Good luck.